Over the last couple of weeks I've had quite a change of pace when it comes to the car, but also when it comes to how I want to travel. And because I've kind of changed the plan for the rest of the year, I picked this up about 14 days ago. But it didn't look quite like this when I picked it up because this car has been through a lot. This is a 1981 model that used to belong to the military in the Netherlands, and it also served for NATO over in the Balkan War. And behind the driver's seat there's actually a bullet hole going straight through the back of where the original seat once used to be. And even though I'm back south, I've been kind of stuck on the Arctic sleep schedule for about 2 weeks, which means that I've been sleeping through the day and working on this during the night. And when I started to sandblast the car, it had the original military green covered up by a screaming blue color, covered up by a dullish greyish blue color. And all of those layers were kind of just flaking off, and because all of these panels are aluminium, I needed to repaint the car just to protect the metal from oxidation. And along the entire length of the car, some stupid lad had put on checker plates, kind of like these ones, just bolted straight through the panels with about 100 different holes. So on either side of the car there is a patch right here covering up a really badly corroded part of the panel, as well as a bunch of small rivets going through all of the smaller holes. Because this is not a restoration, this is just me making this mechanically solid so I'm able to travel with this full time. But why would I want to travel with this car when I also have the Discovery, which is obviously a much better car to travel with? But I'm actually selling the Discovery, and I can't explain the reason for selling that with a million different words, but I actually think the short version makes a lot of sense. I bought this car for about 2,600 euros, and the insurance each month cost me about 20 bucks. Whilst my 2014 model Discovery 4, I paid about 40,000 euros back in the end of 2018. And since I bought that car in my really early 20s, I obviously have a loan on that. And because the car is quite new and expensive, the insurance is also crazy high because I do a lot of miles each year. So like I said, this car costs me about 20 bucks each month, but that's not counting maintenance and all the rebuilds I'm going to do, because this car does need some love because it is a 40-year-old car. But I pay about 700 euros each month just to own and insure the Discovery. Which did make a lot of sense because I replaced my apartment, or well, my rent, to kind of rent the car and travel with that full time. So it has made a lot of sense up until now. You should obviously not take financial advice from a guy living in a car made in the UK, but the Discovery is the only reason why I'm able to live full time doing photography. And everything I do is kind of built around that car, which is also one of the reasons why I want to sell that. Because I don't really want to be linked to this one particular car. Because I want to be able to build something like this. This is not finished, but I want to be able to build something different and not really be linked to this single vehicle. And I kind of decided all of this during my birthday up at the North Cape because I turned 27 and I realized, well, I can continue to pay for the Discovery for another year and then I would own the car, but I kind of feel like I've done everything there is to do with that car. And now that you know all of the real life reasons why I'm replacing the Discovery, I can tell you the other reason, which is probably what anyone else would just say, that yeah, I bought this car because it's cool, not because my wallet is bleeding. Because my wallet is not going to bleed owning this. Traveling full-time in a Land Rover series is probably as core as it gets in the Land Rover bubble. And even though this kind of looks like the publicly known Land Rover Defender, it's not. And if you ever driven a Defender and thought, well, this car drives like a tractor, imagine this being 10 times worse. Because this is actually the car that the Defender is based off, because you had the Series 1, 2, 3, and later on that was reworked into the Land Rover 110, which later on got the name Land Rover Defender, which is kind of similar to, for example, the Mercedes G-Wagon, because they started to make these in the 60s and kind of just kept on making them better up until 2015. But because this was literally made for war, there's nothing in here that doesn't really need to be here. But that's kind of the point here, because as of with the Discovery, I took a advanced and expensive car and made it advanced and expensive plus everything I needed for my traveling. But with this, I can take a really basic but solid car and add on all the things that I need, but not anything else. As an example, the car does not have power steering, but that also means there's a lot of parts that you never need to worry about failing in the middle of nowhere. And while I have your attention, I might as well also cover some of the plans for the build, because up until now I haven't really done anything interesting apart from changing the color of the car. And apart from the color change, I've just been trying to catch up with a bunch of maintenance. I replaced the oil in both the differentials, transfer case, gearbox and the engine. And I'm also rebuilding the 5th brake drum for the handbrake, as well as replacing a starter solenoid because the car wouldn't start. On the roof I'm going to have a solar panel that covers everything from this point all the way to the back of the car. Because for this build I'm going to have a lot more focus on me being able to just park up somewhere and being able to work remotely without having to start the car and drive somewhere to charge all the batteries. At the back door I'm going to have a fold down table for me to prep food or whatnot. And even though this car is still technically kind of small to live in, it's still a lot more room in here than in the Discovery. So at the bottom part I'm going to have a full length pull out drawer. On top of that I'm going to have more storage, a heater, battery setup, fuel tank, cooler, and a bunch of other stuff, as well as having a full length bed for the first time in 4 years. And this non-functional window is either being replaced with a gull wing or a normal camper van window that tilts up with a shade and mosquito net on the inside. I'm also going to replace all of the lights, as well as mounting a backup camera and a huge floodlight at the back. On such an old design like this, I feel like modern LED bars and stuff like that looks really dumb. So I'm trying to source out something that either is from the 80s or looks like it is from the 80s, and have at least 2 extra lights in the grille right here. One of the plans with the huge solar is obviously to have a huge battery pack as well, because I want to be able to cook on an induction top instead of being fully reliant on gas. One of the reasons why I didn't spend cash or time to make this panel pretty is because behind this there is nothing at all. So I'm cutting out a piece here to mount a pre-made storage box to have a diesel tank and a diesel heater. And on this section right here I'm going to have an old style metal traction board, which also functions as a drop down table. And at some point I need to replace all of the all-terrain tires, because as of right now I have 3 Coopers and 1 BF Goodrich at the back, and I would like to have the ladder on all 4. 5. I'm obviously going to talk more about this later, but because it has a 4-speed, I would either like to have a higher ratio in the transfer case or have a bolt-on overdrive.